Hello. Hello, everyone. Let me know if you can hear me. Just doing a test. Tomato, potato, onion, eggplant. Just pop something in the chat. Let me know if you can hear me. Just want to test this out. Awesome. Okay, so we are rolling. Thanks for joining. I'm super excited to make some baba ganoush as well as some Za'atar Pita. Yeah, this is super hype. So I think, yeah, kind of just want to go into like the inspiration behind this. There's this place, this neighborhood called Neukölln in Berlin. And in Neukölln there's this road called Sonnenallee, and it's just this like popping road. Lots of cars, lots of markets. And I just have these like super vivid memories with a lot of my friends of going to this one spot called Azzam, and there's many places like it, but Azzam is this like hummus spot. It's like a breakfast place. You can get basically hummus, baba ganoush, musabaha, which is like a breakfast. It's like a rougher hummus. It's like a cooked chickpea dip. You can get like chicken livers. You can get chicken shawarma over hummus. Like it's great. And yeah, I just kind of felt super inspired by that. I wanted to show everyone how easy it is to make baba ganoush, and also just some of my sort of favorite items. So the chicken thighs here, really like the broiled chicken thighs, I'm just showing you how to broil a chicken thigh, but really that's just kind of like filler for the meal. The real like sort of content of this meal is definitely the Za'atar Pita and the baba ganoush. So just some housekeeping things before we get started cooking. I'd like you all to like feel very comfortable. I'm just adjusting the volume a bit. Feel very comfortable asking questions at any time. I want to make sure that everybody kind of gets to know what they want to know and learn something from this. There's a lot to learn in literally everything we cook. So I want to make sure that people are asking questions. So I think that's about it. We can get started. First of all, say hi to everyone. What's up, Max? What's up, Tana? Hey, Emma. Hey, Eli. Hey, Mom. Hey, Sarenka. Hey, Natty. Hey, Laura. Hey, everyone. This is super, super tight. Yeah. Hey, Sarah. What's up? What's up, Sacramento squad? So let's get started. So the first thing you always want to do when you're cooking is you want to wash your hands, like every single time. Just wash your hands always. I don't really need to explain why, but it's a really good habit to develop. So let's wash our hands. Also, check out this super sick apron. I don't know if you can see it here. Maybe I can pop it in the shot. I'm not sure, but anyways, it's got dogs all over it. So once we've washed our hands, let's wash our produce. So I have already cut up some things. So earlier I made it for the actual newsletter, and I have some lemon already cut up, some tomato already sort of cleaned, and some cucumber already cleaned. So I can kind of go through those things later. I'm not going to skip over them, but I have those things already made. So right now we should wash our vegetables. So wash your tomato, wash your cucumber, and wash your eggplant. Something that's kind of interesting is you don't always want to like wash your vegetables. Like in the case where you're trying to make like a lacto-fermented product like sauerkraut or kimchi, washing your vegetables like with soap or something might actually hurt the fermentation process, because you're actually you're cleaning off, you're wiping off and cleaning off all of those bacteria that are actually crucial for the lactofermentation to occur. So sometimes you don't want to like scrub your veggies. Usually you want to give a quick rinse to your vegetables. So we have our eggplant all washed. And now we are going to, now we're gonna start roasting our vegetables. So if you don't have a gas stove, that's okay. It's okay. It's preferable that you have a gas stove, but as I said in the newsletter, if you don't have a gas stove, you can just use liquid smoke to get that smoky flavor that we're gonna go for, or you can use a really hot pan and just like really char the edge of the eggplant. But it takes longer, and I would recommend using that method with the like microwaving method. So I'm gonna kind of move my setup over here a bit. So this is just, straight up fire, right? So we're just putting this eggplant right on the fire. This is like classic. Like if your mom is, I don't know, like this is like what a grandma would do, what a mom would do. You just slap it on the fire. So now you're roasting it. The purpose of this, okay, Tana, I will get to you in 1 second. The purpose of this situation right here is to get all of the smoky flavor. So the smoky flavor is pretty key. It provides this kind of like background flavor, but it's also kind of sharp. Like smoke is kind of bitter and sweet in a way. And you're basically turning the exterior of this to ash, and some of that flavor is kind of melding into the meat. Tana, I would suggest basically putting your eggplant as high as you can in your so Tana's question was basically she doesn't have a microwave and she doesn't have an eggplant. She definitely has an eggplant. She doesn't have a burner. She doesn't have a gas stove. What I would do in this case is I would actually put my oven on broil. I would broil it as high as I can. I would put my oven rack as high as I can, and then I'd put my eggplant up on that top rack. So the idea here is to get like the highest heat possible on the eggplant, and you're roasting it. The skin of the eggplant is actually kind of protecting the meat inside. It's an insulator, so it's blocking all of that heat. You're not gonna burn. Oh damn. Yep, Anusha, that happens. I forgot to tell you probably to poke some holes in the eggplant, or I think I said to put it in a plastic bag, but anyways. So Tana, you're trying to still burn it and develop that roasted flavor. So I would use highest heat broil you can, top rack. The microwave is a way to just very quickly cook your eggplant because eggplant sort of internally steams, the skin stays together, and you're basically trying to break down that like really spongy texture of an eggplant. An eggplant's basically a sponge. You're trying to break that structure down into the silky smooth sort of flesh that we need for our baba ganoush. Anusha, eggplant burst in the microwave. Sorry, you can just poke holes in it. Make sure it's like covered in a plastic bag or something. You don't need to put them on different burners. Just make sure there's enough fire contact. So you can see with my burner, there's like plenty. I could put like two eggplants on there. But if your burner is a little bit smaller, put it on high, crank up all the way, crank the heat up all the way, Trent, and make sure there's just fire contacting your eggplant as much as possible. So are there any questions about why we're doing this, what it does to the eggplant? I kind of went quickly there. So let me know if you have any questions on that. I'm gonna kind of wait a little bit for people to pop in some questions, but just to kind of recap, we're doing this because we want smoky flavor. If we still want to get the smoky flavor, but we don't have a gas stove, we can try to approximate it by using a broiler. It's like super high heat, still kind of gets that roasted flavor, but at the end of the day, we're gonna have to like kind of compensate with liquid smoke, which is just straight up smoke, like it's concentrated smoke in water. Emma, it doesn't matter if the green stuff is on fire, but I would say try not to have that on fire because later on that's actually going to provide a good bit of structure. A good bit of structure for us handling the eggplant. So try not to burn the stem, basically. Try not to burn this part right here. Just make sure that most of the heat is on the body and the meat of the eggplant. This will get your gas stove kind of messy. So if you want, you can like lay out some aluminum foil under it, kind of line it. And that'll help with cleanup a bit, because juices will start bursting everywhere. Trent, you do not roll them to get them evenly cooked. You want to burn the shit out of it. You want to burn the shit out of the skin, and we're gonna flip it every 5 minutes or so. So like in a couple of minutes, I'm gonna flip that side 90 degrees, and I'm gonna start roasting the other side. I'm gonna kind of roast it like a rectangle, like a rectangular prism, not prison. Bailey, you can put eggplants on the grill, but you can flip them over like in 5 minutes, or like in a minute or two. You can put them on the grill, but usually a grill's fire is actually not strong enough to develop that same smoky flavor. I'm basically just fire roasting it, right? So if you kind of see here, like, check this out. I like actually just have it's just a bunch of ash. It's like turning to ash now, and it's kind of blistering. You can see like it's like a little campfire in my house. So you can flip it like in a minute, basically. I just flipped mine. You can go ahead and flip yours. Flip yours onto the other side. The idea here is we want that smoky flavor everywhere. Anusha, you don't have liquid smoke or a gas stove. That's okay. I was testing a few different methods, and what you can do is, once it's cooked, you can take a cast iron pan, if you have that, or something else like a carbon steel pan, something that can get really hot, and you can just, it's gonna like be a lot of cleanup later for the pan, but you can cut the eggplant and just put it directly on the hot pan, and that's gonna be like as direct of heat as possible, basically. You can also just broil it. That's what I was telling Tana. If you want to develop that flavor and you don't have liquid smoke or a gas stove, you can just broil it. Broiling works, it's not optimal. So that's kind of that. Let's move on to, ask anything if you need. Let's move on to the chicken. So the chicken is actually so while our kind of eggplant is roasting, let's move on here. We're going to now talk about the chicken. So the chicken is actually pretty simple here. It's just, we're just taking chicken and we're gonna broil it. Broiling works for things that cook quickly or things that can withstand a super high heat for long enough to cook. So the example I like to use, so first, just kind of to be clear, I'm oiling a pan with a little bit of olive oil, and I'm just putting some chicken thigh on, right? Mine still has a bone. That's gonna affect how long it takes to cook, but I'm not too worried about it right now. I wouldn't broil a potato. Broiling a potato is a bad idea because if you don't slice it, a potato is just going to burn on the outside before it cooks on the inside. The cool thing about chicken thighs is that you can really cook them. You can cook them quite a bit, and they're actually pretty forgiving. They won't overcook necessarily because they have a lot of fat and a lot of connective tissue inside of them, which kind of just helps you safeguard against overcooking. So I have this chicken thigh here. I'm just putting a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of salt and pepper, like nothing too crazy here. I actually put way too much salt in my hand. That's one habit I would say is good to develop. Put salt in your hand before you put it on the food, because you'll be able to, you'll basically be able to control the flow of salt a bit more. And you want to like pretty liberally season this. You almost always want to liberally season something. Like I've said it last time and I'll say it again, there's a chronically undersalted food out there, and it's a problem. It's a big problem. So make sure you're seasoning your food properly. I'm gonna go ahead and flip my eggplant again. another 90 degrees and get a different side going, I can start to like sort of feel the structure of the eggplant breaking down, which is a good sign. And also I can hear and see my stovetop getting pretty just messy, really. Also, now that we have our chicken thighs prepped, this is literally all I'm doing to it. Just salt, maybe a bit of pepper and olive oil. This is just gonna be something that goes on the side, and we're gonna put it on bread with the whole ensemble. I'm gonna put my broiler onto high, and I'm just gonna do that right now. And I'm just gonna like put this to the side and put it into the oven later. So for now, we are good. We have our eggplant roasting. We have our chicken thigh ready. Once again, reminder, if anyone has any questions, please let me know. So far, we've covered the sort of concepts of smoke, which can be created with either liquid smoke or by charring the eggplant. The smoke helps to balance and like provide a backdrop for the creaminess. So we're gonna have this like creamy, rich eggplant spread with a hefty amount of olive oil in it and some tahini if you want. And all of those things are gonna be pretty rich. Smoke kind of cuts through that. The other thing that cuts through that is garlic. So, right, we have some garlic, and that's really gonna like balance the whole thing. So garlic, smoke, and eggplant and olive oil are the main ingredients here. Anusha, yes, you totally can do that. That will get you some of the way there in terms of smoky flavor. So I definitely recommend doing that. Yeah, my eggplant, I'm just gonna give you a little eggplant cam action over here. It's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty charred. So you can kind of see like the mess that's being made here, but it's also you can kind of see it's soft now. Like it's giving to my tongs. So you gotta just, oh, there we go. Woo! So you can see that, like, that really delicious, just like that golden smoky flavor. And this is just gonna be like me cleaning this up later, which is always a fun time, but whatever. It's worth it. So now, while that's continuing to roast and char, let's hop back over here to the like cutting area. So we want to now prep our kind of like side dishes, right? So let me know, does everyone have their chicken thighs prepped and their eggplant sort of roasting? Just kind of want to check in, make sure I'm not leaving anyone completely behind. Just let me know. If you need help with anything, let me know, ask a question, go for it. So let's move on to the other pieces. So I'm going to prepare like the sort of condiments now. Main condiments being cucumber, tomato, onion, and pickles, as well as olives and some mint. So this is a pretty simple blend of things. I'm just gonna get a plate going. Also, before we do that, your chicken, remember the broiler's on. Put your chicken on the top rack. Try to like probably 5 to 6 inches away from the heat source. Put your chicken up on the top rack, and we're gonna set a timer. Everybody, please set a timer for 10 minutes, at least 10 minutes. So just depending on kind of depending on how big your chicken thighs are, right? Because a smaller chicken thigh would take less time to cook. I would say put your chicken and thigh in for 10 minutes. 5 minutes in, you can flip it if you want. That's kind of a little bit better for even cooking, but I'm not worrying too much about that. So I'm gonna set a timer right now for 10 minutes for my chicken to go in. At this point, our eggplant is kind of nearing the finish line. Like, my eggplant is looking extremely floppy, which is great. And And at this point, it's kind of like, it's almost time basically to get this into a bowl and a little bit out of the way. So we're kind of getting there. I would say for anyone who's broiling their eggplant, broiling is going to take anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes. So it'll take like 20-25 minutes longer than this fire roasting technique if you're broiling it. So if you're broiling it, know that. If you're microwaving it, which is like the easiest way, it takes like 10 or 15 minutes to microwave an eggplant, depending on the power of the microwave and the size of the eggplant. But the main thing, once again, I want to really like clearly put this point across. We're trying to break down the spongy structure of the eggplant. That's what's like, if you've ever bitten into an eggplant and it's been like slightly undercooked or just kind of like a dry sponge, like that's not what we want. We want like a creamy, silky texture. And we're gonna really use that and we're gonna like whip it into something even more amazing. So Tana, it's not gonna burn because there's still so much water. There's so much water inside of your eggplant, and maybe the skin will burn a bit, but the actual eggplant itself has so much water in it, and when water is present, you can't burn something because like all that energy is going into trying to boil that water basically. But like we're almost done. In like 3 or 4 minutes, I'm gonna take mine off. Mine's pretty done actually. I'm gonna just take mine off right now. So I'm gonna just kind of pop it into, oh yeah. I popped it into a bowl. I'm gonna turn this stove off. I popped it into a bowl. What I would suggest now is I would suggest covering it. You wanna kind of let it cool off a bit, but I'm gonna cover it with some saran wrap. I have some plastic wrap. You can cover it with a plastic bag, you can cover it with foil, whatever. You can cover it with like a brown paper bag, that probably works fine, but I'm gonna cover it. With some plastic wrap. So here, the reason why we do this is basically we were just steaming the eggplant inside of its own skin. The skin acted as kind of like a pouch to steam the meat. And now we want to continue to steam it because what that does is that the steam kind of gets in between. It gets in between the flesh and the skin, and it kind of helps lift the skin off of the flesh and makes it a lot easier for us to peel later on. And peeling is kind of one of the more annoying parts. So I have this like covered eggplant now. I'm just gonna set it to the side, right? Okay, cool. Exactly, Mom. It sweats off the skin, which really means it's separating with the steam. Cool. And yeah, once again, like all of our eggplants are different. All of our cooking setups are different. When I say like, okay, I'm gonna take my eggplant off, like don't necessarily take that as a cue for you to take off yours. Like you should tell with your judgment. You want it to be floppy, like really tender. You want it to be really nice and charred. And you want to make sure that like it's cooked all the way through. So if yours isn't ready, put it back on, totally fine. Mine is ready. We can kind of get started. We can get started on the onions, tomatoes, and cucumber situation, as well as the pickles and mint. So what I would say is keep an eye on it. Make sure you're paying attention to your eggplant and make sure your eggplant isn't like completely getting destroyed on your fire, but let's move on. So cool. So now I have this plate over here, and I have all this oniony stuff, and I have this cucumber, and basically this is pretty simple. We already hopefully washed our tomato and our cucumber, and I'm just gonna trim. I'm gonna trim the ends. I want to make sure that the ends are nicely trimmed. I usually use like a little bowl on the side to put my scraps, so I'll just use this for now. And then with tomatoes, Usually what I like to do is I usually take like a smaller knife. This is kind of awkward, but I'll just kind of like rotate. I'll just rotate with the blade and I can get the core out. This little tough piece, I can remove that. Cool. So with the tomatoes, all we're doing is we're just gonna cut it into like eighths. I'm probably just gonna come at it at like slight angle and just cut it into slices, and then that's gonna go onto my plate that I'm gonna later use. You should also hear your chicken thighs starting, or your cauliflower starting to kind of sizzle in the broiler. And I set a timer on that chicken. It's got about 4 minutes left, so I'm gonna go ahead and flip my chicken actually. You can do it with your chicken whatever you want, but I'm gonna flip my chicken personally. And my chicken thigh is actually pretty thick because it still has a bone in there, so it might take a little bit more, like maybe like 12 minutes or 13. As for the cucumber, it's kind of like whatever. It's a cucumber. Hopefully it's a decent quality cucumber, crunchy. I just usually leave it whole. But it's kind of up to you. You can leave it whole, you can cut it at a diagonal, you can cut it lengthwise, you can cut it in half, whatever you kind of feel like you want to do with that cucumber. I'm just going to leave it whole. Now, as for the onions, this is a white onion. The reason why we got white onions and not yellow onions is because my trusted sources tell me white onions are actually a little bit more sweet and mild than yellow onions. So if you ever have like an application of raw onions, like maybe you're making like a traditional enchilada where you just take a little bit of like fresh cheese, like queso ranchero or cotija, and like a little bit of chopped raw onions, and you want to put that over a taco or over an enchilada, you would just use white onions probably. Yellow onions are a little bit more sharp. Same thing if I were like to chop up a bunch of raw onions. In this context, I'm using white onion because I'm going to be biting these raw, and I want to make sure that it's not like completely overwhelming and spicy. I want it to be crunchy. I want it to be a little bit spicy, like a little bit of that bite, but not too much. So I don't know. I think that most people know how to cut an onion, but I actually kind of want to just demo an onion cut because I think cutting onions is like sometimes awkward, and it doesn't have to be. What I usually do to cut an onion is I cut along the root first. So I cut along the root. So top end, bottom end, I cut along that. That creates the two flats that you can then set down, and it's a lot more stable, right? So you can actually cut it. Also, I peel out the outer layer. It doesn't really matter, but apparently the outer layer is a little bit more pungent and a little bit less flavorful, but honestly, I don't think it matters too much. For this context, I would say it might matter a little bit because you don't want to bite into that raw, maybe slightly dried out, slightly pungent sort of like outside layer. So make sure you cut up your onion. Don't cry. No, it's okay to cry. Everyone cries sometimes. And once you have your onion cut up, you can start to peel the layers one by one. So you can just peel off like this. And the reason we're doing that is because we can create these like nice little scoops. These are like the perfect spoon. So these you can actually just use to just go into your baba ganoush when it's ready and just straight up dip it, which is really nice. I think my 10-minute timer is almost up. Yeah, it is. So I'm about to take my chicken thighs out. So everyone has their like cucumber prepped, their tomato prepped, working on their onions, I'm assuming. And here's my timer. I'm gonna check my chicken. Everybody should check their chicken. Serenka, you said you were doing cauliflower as a sub. I would say that probably needs more time to make sure it gets like, I personally like cauliflower like nice and brown and crispy, sort of having those little bits on the florets. I would probably suggest longer than 10 minutes, but that's up to you. You know how to cook that. I'm gonna check my chicken thighs now. All right, just like getting there. I'm gonna open my window because last time I had a nice what's it called, smoke alarm go off. So now we're chilling. Does anyone have any questions? I want to take a little break real quick. Anyone have any questions? Does anyone want clarification on what's going on? Any questions about the onions, the tomatoes, anything like that? Just pop it in the chat, I'll respond. Kind of want to do another recap, kind of take a break right here, take a pause. The reason why this works so well, not the reason why we do it, but the reason why it works so well is really these condiments provide a great textural contrast, temperature contrast, and just like in general, the flavor is kind of fresh. Like there's this freshness to it. There's a lot of crispy texture in the onion. There's this like sort of sweetness and acidity with the tomatoes, and there's this like fresh, crunchy cucumber as well. In terms of types of tomatoes, I would say I don't have a particular type. I don't really know, but I would say maybe something like, it would be cool if it were summer because I think seasonality matters with tomatoes, but I don't know. I just use some like vine ripened tomatoes, some generic tomatoes, but any tomato that you're into. My chicken thigh is almost done. Yeah, I'm gonna call my chicken thigh done. So, up to you guys to make that call, but I think my chicken thigh is done. I'm gonna actually use a thermometer really quick to check. So, sorry about that. I like to use a thermometer because it's the most precise way to tell where your meat's at. Oh, okay, there we go, yeah. This is way past done. Might be a little bit overcooked even, but it's chicken thighs, so it's actually not a big deal, which is pretty cool. So I'm gonna call my chicken thigh done, and we can whip back over here. So my chicken thigh's done. Hopefully yours is too. My onions are prepped already. I separated each of those layers to create those little scoops almost. So I won't need all of this, but whatever. I created all those little scoops. And now we have pickles and we have mint. And we also have olives. So the pickles, I like to get the like Sadaf or Mideast brand ones because it's like this slightly soggy, but also still crunchy, interestingly, texture that I really like. That's why I like these pickles. You could technically use any pickle. I would suggest a very like briny, like sour, garlicky pickle for this application. I think it just works better to balance the richness of the chicken thigh and to balance the richness of the baba ganoush. But I just like to cut them in kind of like little diagonals, and I just kind of put them over there. In terms of our, what's it called? We have our mint now. I like to take just a couple sprigs. This is so nice. Like the mint really does a good job of balancing this dish a lot. Like a bite with mint in it is just so much better as a bite. So I'm just gonna wash that off really quick. And you don't really have to worry about mint wilting when you put water on it. Like, usually vegetables and herbs actually kind of spring up with water when you put them in water or water on it. What you have to worry about is oil, because oil can actually start to break down. Oil can actually break down the leaves a little bit in the coating. A trick that I learned is that you can actually just smack your mint down on the cutting board to dry it out. It's gonna hold, it's gonna stay together, and if you want to keep your mint like sort of dry for some applications, it's a good technique to know, instead of like using a salad spinner or something, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm just gonna keep those sprigs going, and I'm just gonna put that on my plate. So my plate so far is pretty solid. And the last thing I want to put on my plate are some olives. So I'm just gonna put a few olives down, and those are more for snacking because they have the pits in them. I'm not gonna like put them onto a bite. Oh fuck it, I'll just use all the olives. So here we go. We have this plate. We have this plate of all of our condiments. So to recap, we have the sort of like fresh, slightly acidic, slightly sweet tomato. We have the crunchy, fresh cucumber. We have the crispy, fresh, and slightly pungent onion. We have these like pretty sour and garlicky and crunchy cucumbers, pickles. And then we have these olives, which I don't even need to say anything about olives. They're just so good. So this is done. We can put this to the side. Excuse me. My chicken thigh is ready. I'm just going to leave it there. I don't really care about it. But now I want us to prep the pita. So if everybody kind of can get their pita situation going, you're going to need your za'atar, you're going to need your pita, and you're going to need some olive oil. These olives, honestly, I don't know what type they are. I got them at a local store that's like just got a ton of different types of olives. These ones are kind of like pretty savory, rich. They're not super like briny and garlicky. I really like, actually, I guess I could read the label. Oh no, it just says olives on the label, sorry. It just says olives, can't help you there. But they're really rich. I actually prefer like the more garlicky, briny olives for the same reason why I think the pickles work really well here. One other thing that people use sometimes are these pickled turnips. These pickled turnips are actually not that good though. They're not as crunchy as I wanted them to be, but if you make them homemade, they're really good. It's just some beet, like it's like one beet, like 5 turnips or 6 turnips or something, and just like some salt and sugar and some acid, and it's really good. Super crunchy and with a bright red flavor. So I was kind of bummed when I ate those and they weren't really great. And that's so cool, Sarah. That's funny. So now I think we're ready to kind of start the pita operation, pita ops. So take out another baking tray. I'm just gonna do 2 of these, but take out a baking tray. And you can just kind of put your pita there. We're gonna do something with that later. But the main event here is making a paste. So an old classmate of mine, Ranwa, is from Jordan. Well, she lived in Jordan, grew up in Jordan more recently. And she suggested that you make a paste with the the za'atar mix and olive oil, and then spread it over the pita. And that was like a really good, I don't know, that was a pro tip. So I'm gonna like eyeball it, but I want there to be a little bit more za'atar than there is olive oil. So it's like, it's not really 1-to-1. It's more of like a, I don't know, like a 1 to 3/4, if that makes sense. So like a significant amount though. Like you really want a lot of za'atar. Okay, we'll start with that. Now our olive oil. And also I'm gonna get a spoon now because that's just useful. Spoons are useful. So I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it personally, but if you want, try like a 1 to 3/4 ratio. I want it to be spreadable, but not too oily, because when it gets too oily, it's kind of overwhelming. All right. So I'm gonna take this za'atar paste, and I'm just gonna like, just pop it on. And I'm gonna spread it out a bit. So this is like, this becomes like this like kind of crispy, aromatic layer on top of the pita. And it's just super great. I love it a lot. It's really good. There actually might be too much here. I think I'm gonna transfer some of this over to my other one. So yeah, I don't know, that looks fine. You can put a ton or as much or as little as you'd like. It's kind of up to you. I like it pretty hefty though. So I'm gonna make another little batch here. And as we speak, our eggplant is like patiently awaiting our touch. We're gonna peel that just after this. So I'm just gonna make sure that my pita is ready to go. Something that kind of makes cooking a lot less stressful is if you're just slightly thoughtful about sort of timing, and if you think about cooking as this process that has a bunch of different parallel things going on. You can, cook the chicken while you roast the eggplant, and while you're doing both of those things, you can prep your vegetables, and those kind of layers allow you to manage yourself a bit better. And it might sound like, oh fuck, that sounds so complicated, but actually it makes it feel a lot more relaxed and stress-free when you're able to do that. Usually if you were making this by yourself, a lot of these steps would actually go a lot faster because you'd have already made it once. And also, like, I'm not talking to you about all these like concepts that are hidden within this dish. Yeah, this looks great. This looks really good. So I think I'm done here on the pita game. I'm gonna just kind of have these here, and I'm also gonna have one more pita just plain without za'atar in it to eat everything with. And we're gonna crisp those up later. So for now, you can just set these aside. At this point, we can take a little cleanup break. Like, it's important to kind of make sure you're cleaning as you go. It just makes it also another thing that makes your process a lot less stressful and more easy is if you're putting stuff away as you go. It's just so much better. I've been so reluctant to actually do that, but recently I've realized it's a really good idea. So I strongly recommend it. So, does anyone have any questions? Anything that they're curious about? Anything that they kind of want to know more about before we kind of move on to the next part? And if not, totally fine. You can just pop it in the chat. I just want to remind everyone that you are very welcome to ask questions. Whatever you want to know, I'm going to try to answer it. And if I don't know, I'll say I don't know. And I'll probably go learn the answer to it. So, all right. So now I'm going to put away my pita because I'm done with that. Now we're going to get to the exciting part, which is the baba ganoush. The baba ganoush, so I did a lot of research on baba ganoush. I spent like a day researching what baba ganoush is, and it turns out that people don't really agree on the definition of baba ganoush. Some people think about baba ganoush as a dish that has roasted eggplant, but has pomegranate molasses, walnuts and parsley and onions and tomatoes chopped up into it. Other people think of baba ganoush as the way we're preparing it: tahini, olive oil, garlic, lemon juice, and roasted eggplant. Other people think that there's yogurt in it. Other people think that what I just described is this other dish called mutabal. So mutabal is just another eggplant dip. So kind of interesting that, you know, across all of these different cultures in the same region, people don't agree on what a dish is. That's kind of classic. Trent, you're replacing your pita with mushrooms. I would say crisp up the mushrooms before you put the za'atar on the mushroom. Because if you put the za'atar straight up on the mushroom won't have time to get crisped up and roasted, which is personally how I like it. If you like it a different way, if you like your mushroom just like lightly cooked, then I think it's fine. But I would say make sure you're kind of waiting. You're waiting to put the za'atar topping on it. Otherwise you might burn it. Especially because it has oil. Oil's a great heat conductor. It'll just burn that spice mixture if you're broiling your mushrooms. And mushrooms take a little bit longer to cook. So depending on what type of mushrooms you're using, I would generally, for mushrooms, just like broil them and roast them for a while, and then put the za'atar seasoning after. And Eli, yeah, Berlin. I mean, I basically, just to kind of expand on the inspiration behind this, like this one day I got invited to go eat breakfast at this place called City Chicken Breakfast. So City Chicken Breakfast was this like hummus spot down near Zonenale next to Azzam, the thing I originally mentioned. And there was just a lot of rotisserie chicken and a lot of hummus and a lot of black tea. And it was this kind of vibe, this like really strong vibe where people would be talking a lot, pretty loud, having a lot of conversations. Orders would be called out really loud, and it was just this like buzzing sort of vibe. And usually pretty early in the morning, maybe like 8 or 9, people would be kind of chilling. And I started making a habit of like going to City Chicken Breakfast every Tuesday morning. And at some point, I got the recommendation of going to Azzam, which was just better than City Chicken Breakfast, I thought. And I just kept going. I went to Azzam probably over 20 times in like 4 months. It was a lot, but it was super fun. And just you could buy a ton of food for like €4 a person, and you would be full for the rest of the day. Like it was sick. So that was a really interesting. It was a place that we could like develop rituals with our friends at, and I would like show people this place. It was sick. Anyways, so let's move on to the baba ganoush part. So we're over here. You have a pretty steaming hot eggplant at this point. You don't want to like just go in there with your hands. You want to kind of be a little bit strategic about this. What I like to do is just keep the eggplant propped up, and if you want, you can just go in there, and as you can see, like the skin just kind of comes off. If you just come down from the top, you can pretty easily peel off the charred skin. If you microwaved it, you can do the same thing. It's just probably a little bit less charred or less cooked. But you're going around, and be careful because it is hot, but you're going around, you're just kind of peeling the skin off. If you want to do this a different way, in the recipe I sent out, I talked about a method where you can kind of like, a method where you can just cut the eggplant in half and then use a spoon to lightly kind of scrape the meat off of the skin. And that's a little bit easier and a little bit more ergonomic than this, but this is kind of the classic and like, I don't know, I would say more traditional way to do it. That's funny, Tana. When I was writing the newsletter for this recipe, I was actually gonna include this random Google reviewer I found, this dude named Jack Bilton, who just seemed like, I don't know, he just seemed like he was from like London or some shit. He's just some white dude from London. And Jack Bilton wrote like a 2-star review that was like, you know, very bad service, very nice food, but bad service. They forgot my order. Like the Azzam staff forgot my order. And after 40 minutes, I went up there and I asked them, you know, like, where's my order? And they didn't apologize and blah, blah, blah. Like the dude just didn't know how it worked. So basically at Azzam, there are like 25 people up at the counter trying to order constantly. And they're not serving you. Like they don't give a fuck about you. Like they give a fuck about making sure that you have a delicious product in your hands and that it's cheap and that it's fast. So it's your job to get up there and go check your order. And so this guy, Jack Bilton, I guess, just didn't really understand that. Trent, yes, if there's liquid in your bowl, you will pour it out, but hold on. So we're about to strain it. So I just peeled off all of my eggplant skin. All my eggplant skin is done, peeled off. And now I actually have a salad spinner. So you can use a salad spinner. You can use one of these guys, these mesh, these like mesh strainers, whatever you want, but I'm gonna use a salad spinner. With the mesh strainer, what we're gonna do is we're going to drain the water from the eggplant. That's the sole purpose of what we're just about to do, is draining the water. So as you can kind of see, I've gotten most of the skin off. There's little bits, I don't really care as much. I'm actually gonna just go in here. It's just smooth like butter. It's just like butter. And actually I can give you a little cross section here. There's some seeds here, you can see. It's kind of like caviar. It's really nice. But anyways, we're gonna put this in to the salad spinner or into your mesh strainer. And this is to get rid of as much water as we can. The reason why we're doing this is because, well, there are a lot of reasons actually, but that water is not going to help contribute to that creamy texture later on. Like the less water we have, the more firm our dip is gonna be, and the more concentrated flavor we'll have is one theory. The other theory is like, Baba Ghanoush is an emulsion, which is basically a mixture of water and oil. It's olive oil, and eggplant is mostly water. It's like 92% water. And the theory is that basically an emulsion emulsifies more easily, which is basically saying the oil and the water mix more easily if the water phase, the continuous phase, the water is more viscous. So if it's thicker. So the thicker our sort of water element, the easier it is for us to emulsify this thing. But, you know, then again, a lot of other people prepare their eggplant to not have any olive oil mixed into it, and it's just poured on top. So I think it's just like the water, it makes it thin, and we want it to be thick. So the salad spinner method I learned from J. Kenji Lopez Alt. He's a chef who's super cool because he just experiments with everything and proves things with first-hand data. And he thought of this thing being just an easy way with less cleanup to deal with it. If you're working with the mesh strainer, then you're just gonna want to take your eggplant, put it in the strainer, right? You're gonna want to put the eggplant in the strainer, and you want to take your tongs and you're gonna want to like push the eggplant against the strainer and get out as much juice as you can into that bowl. I just use a salad spinner though. Cool. So I'm actually gonna just squeeze a bit more liquid out, and then we're almost ready to actually get to mixing everything up. So this is the exciting part. Also, I get to talk about garlic, which I'm super excited about because I love talking about garlic. Cool. So my eggplant is pretty good. See all that liquid that came out? There's quite a bit. Same thing here. There's quite a bit of liquid. You should have a lot of liquid. If you don't have a lot of liquid, chances are you slightly undercooked your eggplant, or a lot of your moisture has already evaporated, but it's more likely that you overcooked it. So I'm gonna deal with that later. Cool. So now we have this like beautiful eggplant, and we're gonna get a bowl going. So cool. I have this big bowl. I have this really big bowl. I want to make sure I have enough room to mix everything. So at this point, I like to just drop my eggplant directly into a bowl and cut off the top. You don't have to do that though. It kind of depends on what you want here. So this is an important piece. This is based on preference, and this is kind of a situation or a decision point where you get to make a choice about how you want your end product, right? Based on your preferences. There are a few different options. If you want your eggplant to be silky smooth, but also stringy and have some chunks in it, then leave it whole. If you want your eggplant to just be chunky without any strings in it, it'll still be pretty smooth, it'll still be pretty creamy. Chop up your eggplant, right? You can pull it out onto your cutting board, and you can chop it up, right? You can just chop it up, whatever, like a light chop. The other option is if you want your eggplant completely smooth, no chunks, no strings, very creamy and smooth, you can puree it, like blend it with a blender, puree it with a food processor. You can use a mortar and pestle probably, like just totally pulverize it. That's up to you. So at this point, do whatever you want to do with your eggplant. Personally, I like mine silky and stringy and chunky. So I'm just gonna make a cut at the top. I was watching this video, there's a chef, Danny Bowen, and Danny Bowen, I actually don't know how to pronounce his last name. He is the guy who made Mission Chinese food, or at least one of the chefs who worked there. I think he owns it, and he was making a roasted eggplant video, and he said that this part right here is actually the best part, the little nugget. It's like, he said it reminded him of sucking like a shrimp's head, like kind of all that like juiciness. So I'm just gonna go ahead and, actually I'm gonna put some salt on it. Salt is good. I'm gonna put a little bit of salt on this, and then I'm just gonna yeah, that's a lot. That's really smoky. Good stuff. So now, once again, ask any questions if you have them. At this point, I'm gonna take out a fork. I like using a fork for this step. It's kind of up to you, but I'm gonna use a fork. So I just sort of like start mashing this up a little bit. Like I'm just gonna kind of move it around back and forth, kind of like free up some of those fibers. So there's these like strands, right? Like there are these like long strands of eggplant fiber, and most of it has broken down enough. It's tenderized. It's like gotten really tenderized. So I just want to free up those fibers a bit because I want those like silky strands to be running through my eggplant and my baba ganoush. So once you've done that, you can kind of chill a bit and let's prep our garlic. So garlic is super interesting. I'm actually super excited about garlic. There's so much going on with garlic, and I did some research actually today on what's up with garlic. What's the deal? Max, you can discard the eggplant water unless you're trying to make like a pretty cool cocktail. Yeah, I would say just discard the eggplant water. It's not something you will be using later. If you want, you can keep it to thin out your mixture if you feel like it's too creamy, but we kind of want it to be thick and creamy, but it's up to you. Like if you want it to be thinner, a thinner, like more sort of soupy vibe, go ahead, put the eggplant water in there. But I don't do that. So let's get on to the garlic. So garlic clove, I usually just do 1 garlic clove per eggplant. And I mostly eyeball this stuff, but like I gave some general recommendations in the recipe. So one technique that's super important to know, or just super useful, when you want to mince up garlic into a super fine, well, into anything really, if you want to mince up garlic, you can just smash it. Like, yes, you can smash a clove of garlic to like peel it, right? You can take a clove of garlic and kind of just like hit it, and that'll pop the skin off really easily, right? But you also can just smash a clove of garlic, not only to peel it, but to actually start the mincing process. So what I do is it's really easy with a cleaver because it's super wide, but I take the knife edge and I just hit it, right? And so now you have this like almost pretty much crushed garlic. And the next thing that's interesting is you can make a paste by just hitting the like edge of the pile of your garlic. And you can kind of create this puree. And if you want even to grind it up even more, you can use salt. You can use a little bit of salt, and it acts as an abrasive actually. So the salt is going to sort of act as like a grinder, and with the salt, you're going to be able to make an even finer paste. Right? So like, yeah, I don't know. That's a garlic paste, and I didn't even chop one thing. I didn't use my blade at all. I just used the platform, the knife platform. So, good stuff. So what's happening with the garlic, and the reason why it works so well is because it has those like pungent compounds, right? It's got those like pungent aromas that really help balance things out. Because we're gonna have so much eggplant and so much oil and so much tahini and whatever, it really helps to have the garlic around. The other thing interesting about garlic is, so there's this compound called allicin that I think, so there's this enzyme, the name of which I forgot the name of. Well, name. But basically allicin comes from allene. Allene comes from this enzyme. So when you crush open the garlic, when you crush open the garlic cells, you're actually releasing this enzyme, and you're also releasing this allene. And there's a reaction between the enzyme and the allene that turns it into allicin. Allicin is what gives it that sort of sulfuric, pungent flavor and smell. The interesting thing is here, I saw this once. Kenji actually did this before. It's like a little educational thing. But if you have two sponges, like think of these as garlic cells, right? If you have 2 sponges, chopping these, right? You're just cutting them in half. It's just kind of like, it's going to squeeze a little bit of it, but then it's going to result in mostly whole sponges, right? Mostly whole sponges. If you crush the garlic, these are gonna break up and all of those juices are gonna go everywhere. So I think I can kind of like demonstrate this really quick. Here, let's bring it to the sink. So, pardon my sink, but if you chop it, it's just gonna, you know, a little bit is gonna squeeze out. But when you crush garlic, right, and you're doing this, the juices are just gonna come out of the garlic a lot more aggressively than if you were just to slice it. So that's the reason why minced garlic, right? Minced garlic is actually less pungent than crushed garlic. That's important to know. If you're making something and you want the garlic taste to be stronger and more like intense and almost even bitter sometimes, you can crush it either in a mortar and pestle or in a press, or you can use one of these, a microplane. Using a microplane will really create that like intense flavor. So that's just something to kind of be aware of. If you want to create that like really intense flavor, try to crush your garlic more. Don't just mince it, right? So that's that. Natty, I got this knife online. There's this website called Chef Knives to Go. I can pop a link later, but basically Chef Knives to Go, it's just got a ton of like really well researched and really well sourced Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese knives. Like they know where the factory is, they know what type of steel they're using, and it's a pretty cool website. This knife was only like 30 bucks or so. They have like really upscale stuff. They have really like accessible shit. I got my nice knife from there too, so I recommend that website. And they have a cool sharpening service too. I really like cleavers, by the way. They're just kind of sick because you can use them as like a bench scraper. It's like really ergonomic. You can like pick things up, you can smash things, you can tenderize meat with the back of them. There's like really high clearance. I don't know. It's just fun to work with a cleaver. I recommend trying it out. Anyways, back to our eggplant. So I mixed in my garlic. I'm going to do that right now. And we're going to go in now with some lemon juice. So for one eggplant, I don't actually like a ton of lemon juice. I just want a little bit. So I'm going to start with just like, I don't know, like 2 teaspoons, which is, yeah, I think 3 teaspoons are in a tablespoon. So I'm going to start with like 1.5 teaspoons. And remember, like, always just taste your food. Like, this is your food, you're eating it. Don't be afraid to kind of stray from the path. Recipes are just guides, right? You're exploring your own world. Even cuisines in general are just guides. Like, I like to think of like everyone and their respective cuisines as like a map. Like cuisines are like a map for the food world, and you can choose to follow along the borders that people have drawn, but you can also like say fuck borders and, I don't know, make a matzo ball mapo tofu, or mapo matzo balls is something I've been thinking about. It's like all the Jews in the world and all of the Sichuan Chinese people in the world will probably hate me. But don't worry about the recipe. Do more like experimenting. The worst that can happen is you have something kind of delicious and it's just not as delicious as you wanted because you experimented. So I'm gonna do a little taste. Yeah, I actually like that. It's not yet gonna be at its sort of final stage. So we still have 2 things to add. We have our tahini and we have our olive oil. So I'm gonna get a spoon out so I can work with the tahini. there's a lot of sediment at the bottom of the tahini, so make sure you're really scooping up and mixing. You kind of got to mix it a lot. Otherwise that sediment at the bottom it's just going to be like more oil than you want, basically. I'm just going to put 1 spoonful of tahini in here, but you can put more or less. Once again, up to you. I would start with just 1 and just see how it tastes. Also, if you don't like tahini, just don't put it in, it's fine. It's not like a required ingredient because nobody defines what baba ganoush is. Well, there's a general definition, but you get what I mean. Cool, so I'm gonna leave that there. I'm gonna mix this tahini in now. It kind of whitens up the color a bit. It makes it a little bit thicker too. Cool. So now we have some olive oil to put in. Yes, Eli, I can tell you all about olive oil. So olive oil it's oil extracted from olives. Surprise. Olive oil is extracted in a lot of different ways, and there's different qualities of olive oil. I always like having a decent olive oil around for cooking and then another olive oil around for like finishing, because like that one olive oil will taste like really good and the other one will be like, you know. This olive oil I'm pretty sure is like fine. I don't know. I don't really care right now. Olive oil, some people say that olive oil gets bitter when you aerate it. I read an article that said that's probably because there's something called polyphenols in olive oil that's an antioxidant, and when you mix olive oil with water, those polyphenols are actually water soluble, so they dissolve into water and they get drawn out of the olive oil into the water and tend to make things more bitter. I personally haven't actually experienced this firsthand though, so I don't think it's a problem, but just kind of a heads up if you're sensitive to that, or if you're like, you taste bitterness, it might be the olive oil. It also might be the allicin that we were talking about earlier from the garlic, because that also introduces a bitter flavor. And if you ever have bitterness in your food, a lot of people actually say salt can actually balance bitterness a little bit. You see this with like gailan and oyster sauce, which is like, gailan is like a Chinese mustard green, and oftentimes it's served with a dollop of oyster sauce, which is like a super salty, like pungent umami sauce that kind of balances the bitterness nicely. So just a little tip. So now I mixed in the tahini and it looks pretty well incorporated, and I'm going to now start drizzling in my olive oil. So I'm just gonna put in like a squirt at first, and I'm gonna mix everything up. And the reason I'm doing just a bit at first is because of kind of harkening back to what I said earlier about emulsions. So emulsions, as a mixture of water and oil, you need to basically break up all these little oil particles into the water. And then once you start doing that, it'll start thickening up a bit and getting a little bit more structure. That's for another episode though, another time. So I'm just gonna start kind of drizzling olive oil in little by little, and just whipping it. And you'll notice the colors changed a little bit, and the consistency will change a bit as well. So you can kind of see mine. All right. And usually you put like a significant amount of olive oil in here. Don't be shy. If you put too much, it will kind of break and like be like pooling greasy sort of. Don't do that. But just mix this until your arm kind of falls off. Until it's like kind of, you're sore. And you should start to get sort of that baba ganoush texture that you might be familiar with. So this point, I'm kind of ready to start tasting this. So I'm gonna take a little bit of salt, just a bit, and I'm gonna salt it. It's like probably less than a teaspoon of salt. But once again, salt makes everything better. So much better. That's good. Yeah, that's nice. Taste it, salt it more if you need it. If you over salt it, I think the best way to fix that would actually be to add more eggplant, but you might not have more eggplant on hand. So you could balance it with a little bit more tahini and a little bit more olive oil, actually. Those fats would kind of offset the saltiness a bit. You could also squeeze in a little bit more lemon, but you don't want something to be too salty and too sour, so just kind of be careful with that. I'm gonna hit mine with a little bit more lemon. This is like, tastes really good, actually. Also, if you wanna like actually, if you wanna squeeze lemon the right way instead of the way I just did, which was the lazy way, because I got like a little bit of, like, I got a seed in there. You can actually just squeeze it over your hand like this. If you squeeze it over your hand, you end up straining out the seeds and you don't get the seeds to go in. So just a little technique that's really useful. Cool. Mine's ready, so I'm gonna start kind of plating everything up. So first things first, I'm putting some stuff away. I have 2 plates, actually. One for Baba Ghanoush and one for lebna. So lebna is a, it's kind of like a cheese, like a yogurt, really creamy, really fatty. And I like eating this with just olive oil and some za'atar and sumac. So, which brings me to my other sort of point. We still need to toast our za'atar and we still need to chop up our chicken thighs, right? So let's get that going. My chicken thigh is right here. It's pretty ready. It's pretty done. I'm just gonna chop it up. It's on the bone. It's nice and cooked. Remember that chicken thighs are a little bit pink, so they are dark meat. But if it looks raw, definitely cook it longer. I think mine are perfect. So I'm just gonna cut these up into kind of like thin slices. Cool. I'm gonna get another plate. Cool. Yeah, sorry, I'm just eating as I go. Let's start plating up, right? So we have, oh, also, before we do that, let's toast our Za'atar. Our Za'atar Pita. So remember these people, we still need to toast them. So I'm just gonna broil on low. I want to make sure that I'm not burning these. I actually totally overcooked them. I'm just trying to toast these basically. I want to like slightly fry the top, but really I just want to toast these. So I'm putting those to broil on low, and I want to keep a very close eye on these. I don't want these to turn crispy like pita crackers. I want them to be soft and pliable. One way to make sure that happens is you can just sprinkle some water over your pita. That's gonna help steam it a little bit and keep it moist, so it's not gonna completely catch on fire or anything, but we're gonna just put these in the broiler for like 2-ish minutes, like really not that much time. So I'm just gonna put those in and they can do their thing. So I'm gonna be keeping a really close eye on those. You should also be keeping a very close eye on yours. Like, don't forget about them. It'll just be sad. It'll be tragic. The next thing that we want to do is we want to plate up the baba ganoush, right? So the way I usually do this is I just pour it into a dish, like kind of a shallow dish. Do it like your dad would do it to a yogurt container, you know? Like, you gotta really get every last bit. Everything counts. If your dad doesn't do this or whatever, just make sure you're not wasting any of that eggplant. It's really, like, everything is like gold. It's precious. Cool. So the way I like to do this is I kind of even it out a bit, and then I start rotating it. I rotate it and I make this well. I make this well in the middle, and that well is going to be where the olive oil lives. So I recommend just spinning it until you have this kind of mountain in the middle. You have this mountain in the middle, and then you have this like little moat, and that moat is going to be like a moat of olive oil. Now, hold up. Let's check our pita. Mine looks pretty okay so far. It's getting a little bit toasty. Probably just going to do like a little bit less than a minute, and I'm going to take it out. Just don't forget, it's not worth it. Don't forget about it. Does anyone else have any more questions about this? Anyone else interested in garlic as much as I am? Or olive oils, polyphenols? Just pop it in chat if you're curious. Cool. So I think my pita are probably done now. I'm going to take them out just to make sure that they're not going to get burned, just to make absolute certain. It smells pretty good. There is a little bit too much olive oil on the Za'atar, but I'm just going to borrow that olive oil and just let it drip onto the baba ganoush, because that is a good idea. Yeah. Okay. Sranka, if your baba is way more chunky, that could be a result of cook time. So I'm not sure how you cooked it, if it was over a fire or in the microwave or in the broiler, but if you broiled it and you broiled it for like less than 30 minutes, then it probably wasn't exactly tenderized. You really want it to be floppy. But if you beat it enough, I think that it can become more tender. So making sure that you just like give it more arm strength. You can get it there. So my pita is basically done. You should take your pita out probably. I'm just kind of living life on the edge here and trying to, I don't know, make sure it's like crispy. But I think it's done. So my pita's done. I'm gonna put olive oil in my well now. I'm just gonna drizzle olive oil, and you have this like this little olive oil sanctuary and this little island in the middle of the olive oil moat. Personally, also gonna mess around with some of this. This is like I'm really into this stuff. Lebanese. It's so simple. Wow, the cat is meowing. I'm sorry. Same thing here. I have a well. That I create. Right? Cool. All right. That's so good. This is like tart and creamy and like really rich. But same thing here. Olive oil well. All right, now we're gonna garnish it. I like to use a little bit of za'atar on both of them. I like to use wow, I just made a mess. I like to do it on the non-olive oil part. I'm just gonna do za'atar in this and a little bit of paprika on the baba ganoush. So to talk about color contrast for a little bit, color contrast is just like great. Like if you can add just like the smallest amount of color contrast, all of a sudden your food becomes so much more appetizing. It's kind of interesting. It's just like putting a little bit of green, putting a little bit of red together, it makes colors pop and makes you just want to eat something more, strangely. Some paprika and also some sumac. So sumac berry is this like, it's like sour, quite sour. It's like this dark sort of, I don't know, burgundy color. It's pretty intense, but I like it. It's kind of sour. So use that kind of almost like as a powdered lemon. Think of it like that. It's pretty interesting stuff. And I also like to put it on top of my pita. So I'm actually gonna do that really quick. All right. The last sort of finishing touch for me is a sprig of parsley on the baba ganoush to round out the colors once more. And we are done. I'm done. If you're done, you're done. If you're not, cool. No worries. But we're done preparing it now. So at this point, I like to plate everything up. I'll just put like the chicken and everything on the same plate. So we have our, here, let me actually bring this out to the, actual eating area. Got all of our stuff Okay, so at this point I'm done. Let me know if you're done, if you're ready, if you're not. Everything should be pretty much ready. And yeah, this is kind of, I want everyone to taste it. Let me know how they're feeling, how they're tasting, I guess. This is like a super, it's actually once you learn how to do it, I think it gets more and more simple every time as something to prepare. Just eating with your hands, like the bread is really like important, I think, as just like cultural importance, but also in terms of just what it provides. Like it basically provides this platform for you to put any sort of flavors on it. So whenever you have something, hey, get down, hey. There's this cat trying to eat my food. But every time you have bread, it's a really good platform just for other flavors. And so this is like a perfect example of that, right? Like the baba ganoush is like this smoky, silky, creamy thing, and it needs somewhere to go. So I'm gonna bring us over to the other area. Really quick, hold on a sec. Take off my apron. Do you see this cat? This cat is trying to start some shit with me. Anyways, so yeah, we have this massive spread of things now. Hey, get out of here. Get out of here, cat. Yeah, we have all of our stuff here. So, hey, get out of here. Hey, look at the fucking cat. Get out of here. This cat is such a brat. It's a bratty cat. What? Get out. The cucumbers, I literally just washed them and just trimmed the ends, so. So now, hey, this cat, do you see this cat? It's so annoying. Yeah. All right, so rip off a little bit of the Za'atar Pita. I do a little bit of bread, make sure there's some olive oil in there, some baba ganoush, the bread. A perfect bite for me. Hey, stop. Some onion, a little bit of pickle, a little bit of mint. And that's honestly it. I like a little bit of tomato. It's good to salt on your tomato. See you later, Tano. So, all right, yeah. So that was great. I'm gonna be eating, so if anyone wants to hang out, actually, I think I can. Yeah, let me. Yeah, if you guys want to hang out, we can chill. and just eat this because I have dinner now. So, sorry. I am going to actually drop a Zoom link in here. You are welcome to join me. I'm gonna sign off now. So thanks so much for coming. This was sick. I'm super glad you guys got to eat this and make this. Yeah, this is really good. So super happy to share with you. Hope you learned something. If you're curious, so one thing I would love is if you guys posted on your Instagrams, tag me at Ben_Imidali and some hashtags. So I think last time we said stay thick, hashtag stay thick with 2 C's, thick cooking, and thick thighs save lives. Whatever you want, but tag me, show me your creations, share them, let me know, and I will, yeah, and we can kind of share and see. Yo, hold on, I need to mute that. I need to mute them. Sorry about that, but yeah, would love it if you came to the Zoom, and also if you share. So thanks everyone for coming. I'll be coming out with another one next week and we can work on it then. Until then, here's actually the meeting link if you want to hang out and eat and Zoom. Bye, everyone. Bye. Enjoy your food. Oh yeah, DM me if you want the Zoom link. DM me on Instagram. See you later.